Welcome to Colonize the Ocean podcast, where we discuss oceanic colonization, exploration, and education with your hosts Adam Jewell and Brendan Traxler.
Welcome to the deep dive. Get ready to plunge headfirst into something pretty unexpected today because we are exploring a place you probably didn't think we'd find a car company.
Yeah.
I mean, when you picture a major automaker, you're likely thinking chrome, engines, maybe, self-driving tech.
Sure, the usual stuff.
The absolute last thing that probably comes to mind is like the crushing, silent world miles beneath the ocean's surface. And yet, that's exactly where one of the world's biggest automotive groups is, well, making waves.
It is genuinely fascinating and really counterintuitive when you first hear it. We've got a whole stack of source material here, articles, reports, all detailing this surprising collaboration.
Right.
It's between Stellantis, the global giant with Peugeot, Fiat, Chrysler, Jeep, all those brands, and this group called Under the Pole, who are all about pushing the limits of underwater exploration.
Okay, Under the Pole. And our mission for this deep dive is to take all that info you mentioned, all these sources, and really, really drill down. We want to pull out the core insights, the surprising bits, the practical details, just to understand why a car company is helping build a deep-sea observation capsule, and how they're actually using their car-making skills in this totally different world.
Yeah, getting to the heart of it.
Getting to the heart of this, really unexpected venture.
It absolutely challenges the common idea, doesn't it? We often hear that saying, maybe debatable exactly how true it is, but that humans know more about the moon's surface, or space, than the deepest parts of our own oceans.
Right. I've heard that a million times.
And this project, it's like a direct answer to that big unknown. And the fact that a group known mostly for cars is involved.
Yeah.
Well, that's where the story gets really interesting.
Couldn't agree more. So, okay, let's set the scene. Let's start with that basic idea that's in the materials. Just how mysterious the ocean depths really are. That feeling that, compared to mapping galaxies or sending robots to Mars, we've barely scratched the surface of the underwater world, especially once you get below where, regular scuba divers can go.
It's pretty humbling, actually, when you just think about the sheer volume of water covering our planet. I mean, the deep ocean is the largest habitat on Earth, easily. And yet, it's still largely a frontier.
Right.
And this is exactly the kind of place that organizations like Under the Pole are focused on exploring. Their name kind of says it all, right?
Yeah.
They tackle challenging, often extreme environments, pushing human presence and observation deeper.
And they're not new to this. The materials talk about a big project they did before. An underwater habitat called Capsule I.
Yes, Capsule I. That was a really pioneering project, launched back in 2017, I think.
Yeah.
Deployed in the waters of French Polynesia. And you might picture, turquoise lagoons, shallow reefs there.
Totally. Paradise.
Paradise, exactly. But those waters also plunge really deep, giving access to some incredibly diverse and complex marine ecosystems.
And the whole idea behind Capsule I, it sounds straightforward, but kind of revolutionary for research. Just create a semi-permanent underwater observation spot for diver scientists.
Exactly. The goal was to let them live and work at depth for extended periods, get a perspective and immersion that you just can't get from daily dives off a boat.
You're not just visiting, you're kind of moving in for a bit.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the years it was running really proved how valuable that was. The data highlights the key research areas that scientists living in Capsule I focused on.
Like what sort of things?
Well, detailed studies on coral health, reef structures, different kinds of macroalgae, the bigger seaweeds that form underwater forests, which are super important.
Okay.
Also sea fans, mollusks, even tiny delicate things like hydras. Being able to watch these organisms and how they interact, like 247 for days. It gave marine biologists insights that the sources describe as, invaluable.
Wow. So what made Capsule I itself so good for that kind of observation? The design must have been key. The materials mention a panoramic view?
Oh, absolutely essential.
Yeah.
Capsule is designed with these large, transparent domes, lots of portholes placed just right. Imagine being inside, just surrounded by the deep blue, with almost a 360-degree, clear view of everything happening outside.
That's amazing.
And it wasn't just for looks. It let scientists track animals moving, watch complex behaviors, monitor changes in the environment, see ecological relationships across a huge area without having to constantly move or peek through tiny windows. It minimized their disturbance while maximizing what they could see.
And they weren't limited by normal dive times either, right? It says it could operate around the clock for several days straight.
Yeah, that extended time was a complete game changer compared to normal diving. Usually, your bottom time at depth is super limited by air supply and, the big one, decompression.
Ah, the bends.
Exactly. And that brings us to a really significant technical detail about Capsule I, the air inside. It wasn't normal air. It used a heliox atmosphere.
Heliox, okay, I've heard of that. It's mostly helium and oxygen. The sources say 80% helium, 20% oxygen. That sounds really different from air. What's the point of breathing so much helium down there?
Right. This is where the technical stuff gets really important for understanding what they could achieve.
Yeah.
The huge benefit of that much helium, 80%, is how it changes the whole game for staying at depth and coming back up.
Okay.
Unlike nitrogen, which is like 78% of the air we breathe, helium doesn't dissolve into your body tissues nearly as much under pressure.
Ah, okay. So with normal air, pressure forces nitrogen into your blood and tissues. Come up too fast, pressure drops, nitrogen bubbles out, like open a soda can. That's decompression sickness.
Exactly right. Nitrogen's the main issue for divers on air. Helium, being much less soluble, just sidesteps a lot of that problem. By breathing 80% helium, the scientists in Capsule I could stay at depth way longer without loading their tissues with gas that needs hours and hours of slow decompression stops on the way up.
Wow.
In many cases, it meant they could come back to the surface much faster, sometimes almost directly, as long as the surface setup was right after they left the habitat.
So just by changing the gas mix, they basically removed one of the biggest hurdles to spending real time deep underwater. Instead of hours decompressing after maybe an hour of work, they could spend that time actually observing, collecting data, doing the science. That's a massive leap in efficiency.
It absolutely is. It unlocks time frames that are just impossible otherwise. And besides that crucial tech, the sources really hammer home another core design principle of Capsule I, its commitment to having absolutely zero impact on the environment around it.
And they list how they did that. It floated above the seabed, didn't sit on it.
Right, floated.
Yeah.
It wasn't powered, so it didn't move around churning things up.
Okay.
Emitted no noise, which is huge underwater.
Yeah.
And it had no surface connections, like cables or tethers.
Why is all that so important?
Well, think about the delicate ecosystems they're studying: corals, deep-sea sponges, complex seafloor habitats. If your observation platform is, like, bolted to the bottom, crushing stuff, or if it has noisy engines scaring everything away, or cables dragging across sensitive areas, you'd fundamentally change the very thing you're trying to study in its natural state.
Yeah, you'd just be studying a disturbed environment, not the real thing.
Precisely. Capsule I's whole philosophy was minimal intrusion. Floating meant no physical damage. Being silent meant no acoustic disturbance, super important for marine life. No surface links meant no dragging or snagging. This wasn't just a nice-to-have feature. It was fundamental to the validity of the science. It let them see life as it truly happened.
Okay, so Capsule sounds like a massive success. Proved the concept, got invaluable data, pioneered this heliox approach for long stays. But like any first-gen tech that gets used a lot, those years of use probably showed where things could be, better. It was great, but maybe not perfect. The experience revealed limitations.
That's always how it goes with science and tech, right? It's iterative. You build it, use it, learn what's amazing, and also identify the pain points or things you wish it could do. And that feedback from the scientists and the crews who actually used Capsule II was vital for figuring out what the next generation needed.
And that led Under the Pole to start thinking about and designing Capsule II, the successor habitat.
Exactly. And this right here is where the story takes that really surprising turn we mentioned. This brings us to the core of our deep dive today.
Okay.
To help make Capsule II happen, to fix those limitations and add new capabilities, Under the Pole looked for a partner, a really unexpected one. They turned to a French car maker. Peugeot.
Which, as we said, is part of Stellantis, this global automotive giant. Okay, seriously. You're building an advanced underwater pressure vessel to keep people alive deep down, and you need help making it better. Why call a car company?
Yeah, it's the big question, isn't it?
What's the connection?
And the source material is actually quite specific here. It says, Under the Pole is tapping into the expertise of Stellantis, specifically Peugeot, to improve the interior of the capsule.
The interior.
Yes, not the external hull, not the primary life support dealing with gas mixes and CO2 scrubbing, though obviously those are critical. It's about the space where the scientists actually live and work.
Ah, the interior. The
Yeah.
bit designed for people. Okay, now that starts to make a bit more sense. Car companies pour billions into designing interiors, cockpits, passenger spaces, making them functional, comfortable, safe.
Exactly. And think about the environment inside capsule tech. You've got scientists, maybe spending days, weeks even, crammed into a pretty small pressurized space,
Right.
doing complex tasks, needing focus, needing access to information. The design of that internal space becomes absolutely crucial for the mission's success and efficiency.
Okay, let's dig into that. What were the specific goals for Capsule Tech based on lessons from Capsule 1? And how does the carmaker expertise fit? The sources mention a few key improvements.
One is using improved materials. The sophisticates aren't given, but the idea is Capsule 2 will be built with better stuff, maybe lighter, stronger, more durable materials than the first one.
Which makes sense. Material science is everything for deep-sea stuff, pressure, corrosion, long life.
Absolutely. Any improvement there could mean better depth rating, bigger safety margins, longer operational life. Crucial stuff.
Then a big one highlighted where Peugeot comes in, improved ergonomics.
Ergonomics. Yeah, that's the science of designing things so people use them easily and safely. In a habitat or a car, it's optimizing that human-machine interface, the physical space, to make it efficient, comfy, intuitive for people doing their jobs.
Like how controls are laid out in a car, how the seat feels after hours, where the screens are so you can see them easily.
Exactly. Now apply that to a deep-sea capsule. You've got people living, working, confined, under unique physical and mental stress. How the inside is arranged, the comfort of seats or bunks, how easy it is to reach scientific gear, where monitors are placed, all that directly impacts how well they can do their research, stay focused for long periods.
Yeah, bad ergonomics down there could mean fatigue, mistakes, discomfort. It could compromise the whole mission.
Totally. So Peugeot's contribution isn't just like picking nice colors, it's applying decades of experience designing confined, human-focused spaces for high-performance, safety-critical jobs like driving a car to this equally demanding, though very different job of doing science deep underwater. It's about making a workspace and living space that actively helps the scientists.
The sources also mention big upgrades in onboard systems that Capsule I lacked, specifically comms systems and screens.
Yes, this is a major leap. Capsule I's lack of surface tethers was great for zero impact, but probably meant pretty limited real-time chat with the surface team.
Right, or limited ways to easily view or process digital data inside.
Exactly. Adding good communication systems means real-time sharing of what they're seeing, maybe getting advice from experts back on land, better emergency coordination, just better logistics. Huge boost for safety and collaboration.
And screens.
Screens mean they can interface with digital sensors, look at high-res video from outside cameras or maybe a little ROV, check maps, manage data streams, all without relying on like paper logs or peering out the window.
Brings it into the modern age of data collection.
For sure. A big upgrade in capability compared to the more, maybe, analog approach of Capsule 1. Presumably, they figured out how to add these without compromising that zero-impact goal, maybe using advanced acoustic or light-based comms that don't need cables.
Now, let's focus right in on that car expertise. The sources explicitly say Peugeot is using its experience from its i-Cockpit concept to influence Capsule Toller's interior. What is i-Cockpit?
Right, the i-Cockpit. It's been a core part of Peugeot's interior design thinking in their cars for years. Now, the sources don't give us a full car review of it, but the implication and just general car knowledge tells us it's about creating a really distinct driver-focused environment.
Okay.
Typically, in a Peugeot with i-Cockpit, you find a smaller steering wheel, kind of sporty feeling. And the instrument panel, the dials and stuff, they're positioned higher up, so you look over the wheel at them, not through it.
Ah, like a heads-up display sort of idea.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
More integrated, but that kind of sight line, plus a big central touch screen for infotainment, controls, often tilted towards the driver. It's a very deliberate design to optimize how the driver interacts with the car's info and controls.
Okay, so it's Peugeot's signature approach to the driver's workspace, info access, control layout, a specific feel. And they're taking the principles from designing that car interior and applying them to an underwater research pod.
That's the core idea described in the partnership, yes. translating the lessons learned, making ergonomic, intuitive spaces for drivers operating a complex machine at speed on land, to scientists operating sensitive gear and watching delicate processes in a confined space under pressure, deep underwater.
Right.
The sources specifically say it's about redesigning the living spaces inside the capsule, tailoring them to the uses and needs of various exploration missions.
Uses and needs of various exploration missions. That phrase seems key. It's not just sticking a car dashboard underwater.
No, definitely not.
It's about analyzing what a marine biologist or maybe a geologist or a tech needs to do in there. Watch through ports, monitor sensors, use equipment, log data, communicate, rest, and then designing the layout, the seating, storage, lighting, the displays to make those specific actions as comfortable and efficient as possible over long stretches.
Exactly. It's applying that high level of interior design and human factors engineering rigor you see in premium cars, but applying it to a scientific instrument.
It makes sense. The basic principles of how a person interacts with a tight space, how info is best shown, where controls feel natural, how seating reduces fatigue. Those are universal challenges, whether it's a car, a plane, or a submersible. Peugeot's i-Cockpit experience is basically their library of knowledge on solving those interior problems.
Precisely.
And get this, there's an interesting little detail. The sources note this i-Cockpit concept is being used for the capsule, even though Peugeot recently, changed or scrapped it for their mainstream cars.
Isn't that fascinating? It's a classic example of tech transfer, finding a new, maybe even more fitting second life.
Yeah.
It suggests that even if the exact i-Cockpit setup evolved or got replaced in cars for whatever reason,
Right.
the underlying design thinking, the experience they gained developing it, the expertise in human-centric design for complex interiors, that knowledge is still incredibly valuable. It can be repurposed for a totally different challenge, like an underwater habitat, with its own unique needs and constraints.
It shows the value isn't just the final product, but the process, the knowledge built along the way. Okay, so with all these upgrades, planned materials, ergonomics, systems, the i-Cockpit influence, when can we expect to see Capsule -6 actually, getting wet?
The timeline mentioned in the materials points to it being ready for deployment by the summer of next year, so 2026.
2026? Wow, not that far off. Any word on where it might be deployed first?
Still undisclosed, apparently. But the main goal is consistent with Under the Pole's mission. Keep pushing. Keep expanding the observation of aquatic life, getting humans deeper for science, and building on what Capsule I proved, but making it even better.
It really sounds like a significant step up in capability for this kind of long-term, non-disruptive deep-sea science, letting scientists spend even more quality time observing and understanding these, frankly, largely unknown environments.
Absolutely. It's about enabling better, deeper understanding.
Okay, let's maybe zoom out a bit and put this project in a slightly wider context, because the sources hint that while this deep-sea thing seems really out there for a car company, it might not be the only time Stellantis has looked beyond, roads.
That's right. The materials do mention this deep-sea habitat isn't totally isolated in terms of Stellantis investing in different tech areas. They apparently previously put a pretty hefty chunk of change, $150 million, into a company called Archer.
Archer? What do they do?
Archer develops eVTOL aircraft. It's electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. I think advanced air taxis or drones, maybe.
Okay, eVTOLs, got it.
And the source material specifically mentions one focus for Archer as an eVTOL warship.
An eVTOL warship. Okay, that's another unexpected turn. But it does sort of reinforce a pattern, doesn't it?
It does.
Stellantis, this company you associate purely with cars, trucks, vans, is actively investing significant money and presumably using some of its engineering or manufacturing muscle in areas like future flight and now advanced deep-sea exploration. It definitely suggests a strategy that goes beyond just making better gasoline engines or even standard EVs. They seem to be looking at where their core skills, engineering, manufacturing design, systems integration, can be applied to new, maybe high-risk, high-reward tech challenges.
And speaking of unusual tech for tricky environments, the sources briefly mention a couple other examples out there just to show the variety of innovation happening.
Yeah, just for context on the wider world of exploration tech, they mentioned China developing a robotic mobile shark.
A robot shark? Seriously?
Sounds like it. For underwater surveillance or study, presumably. And another one was an amphibious bulldozer, like a heavy-duty machine designed to work just as well on land as in the water.
Wow. A robot shark and a water-loving bulldozer. These examples really drive home the point that people are trying all sorts of weird and wonderful approaches to get into and study difficult places, whether it's the deep ocean or like swampy coastlines. Lots of creative thinking. It shows engineers are using everything from copying nature biomimicry to blending capabilities and heavy machinery, just trying to overcome the physical hurdles of different terrains and environments.
And for maybe a slightly more, I don't know, relatable comparison, even if it's totally different, the sources mention the U-boat Nemo II. They call it the world's first submarine car and say the Supercar Blondie team checked it out.
Ah, yes, the U-boat Nemo II. Sounds like, based on that description, more of a luxury toy, right?
Yeah.
A vehicle for driving on roads and doing some shallow underwater cruising.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously, worlds apart technically from a deep research habitat like Capsule II, but it gives you a kind of relatable picture. This idea of a vehicle crossing domains, even though the Stellantis project is about transferring design thinking, not making a car sub combo, it just helps visualize blurring those lines.
Puts the whole automotive experience applied elsewhere idea into a context you can maybe picture easier, even if the goal is totally different. Science versus luxury. And while Stellantis is doing these fascinating side projects, deep sea pods and eVTOLs, we should remember their main business is still very much cars on roads. The sources mention ongoing stuff like Chrysler's 100th anniversary, their big presence at the New York Auto Show.
Showcasing Jeep, Dodge, all their core brands.
Yeah, that contrast is important, right? To see Stellantis' overall picture, the capsule and the eVTOL investment seem like exploring high-tech niches using their core skills. But that happens alongside the massive day-to-day job of making and selling millions of regular cars and trucks worldwide. It's like a portfolio approach.
Diversification and innovation, perhaps.
Okay, so let's bring it back home. To you listening, why should you care that a giant car company is helping build an underwater research lab? What's the big takeaway here?
Well, I think it highlights something truly fascinating, with implications way beyond just this project. It's the power of cross-industry knowledge transfer. Expertise that's been refined over decades in one field, like automotive design, manufacturing precision, making ergonomic human spaces in tight spots, integrating complex electronics in cars. That expertise can be incredibly valuable, directly useful for solving tough problems in a completely different area, like deep-sea habitats.
It's that aha moment. You realize the skills to make a comfy driver's seat or a clear dashboard are surprisingly relevant to making a cramped underwater pod efficient and bearable for a scientist doing tricky research for days.
Exactly. The underlying principles of human factors, spatial design, they're universal.
And this isn't just a cool engineering story, right? This knowledge transfer actually helps science happen.
Absolutely. Better habitats mean better research.
Yep.
Simple as that. More comfortable, more efficient spaces, better comms, better data handling, it all means scientists can spend more quality time focused on observing and collecting data down there. They can use more advanced tools and methods.
And why is getting that deep ocean data so critical anyway?
Because, like we said, it's the biggest and least known part of Earth. The data from down there is vital for understanding global biodiversity. I mean, countless species we haven't even found yet.
Wow.
It's crucial for understanding deep-sea ecosystem health, which are surprisingly vulnerable to what we do on the surface. It's key to understanding the ocean's role in climate regulation, absorbing CO2 and heat. It might hold secrets for new medicines, new resources. By letting scientists stay longer and work better, platforms like Capsule II just accelerate our understanding of this absolutely critical ecosystem.
And that focus on the non-disruptive design capsule, Capsule II aims for it. That's super important too, right?
Paramount.
Yeah.
You have to study these places without messing them up. You want to see the ecosystem as it truly is, not how it reacts after you've blundered through. Capsule II, continuing that commitment floating, silent, minimal intrusion, means the data they get on marine life and habitats is much more likely to be accurate, reflecting the natural state. And that accurate data is what you need to inform real conservation efforts, to understand the true dynamics down there.
So basically, expertise honed, making sure your gear shift feels right, your touchscreen is easy to use, and your car seat doesn't wreck your back on a road trip. That same kind of thinking is now helping enable potentially groundbreaking science about life on Earth, deep underwater.
It's a powerful example of how innovation and applying specialized knowledge can pop up in really unexpected places and lead to profound results for science and understanding our planet.
It really makes you think about how problems in one area might find solutions in the experience built up somewhere totally different.
Totally unexpected connections.
Well, that was quite the journey. From the car showroom floor, potentially, down to the abyssal plains, we've untacked how, under the Pole's first capsule, I really proved the concept of long-term, non-disruptive deep-sea observation. Showed its value, but also where tech needed to advance.
Right. And that need led them to this surprising partnership with Stellantis, specifically using Peugeot's deep know-how in designing human-focused interiors, experience gained from things like their i-Cockpit concept.
This collaboration is aimed squarely at Capsule II, the next-gen habitat. It's going to have better materials, much better ergonomics using those automotive design ideas, and essential modern tech like comms and screens.
And it's slated for deployment in 2026, ready to continue that critical mission, exploring and observing deep-sea life with minimal impact, building on and really pushing past what Capsule I could do.
And we saw this isn't totally random for Stellantis either. They've also invested in things like eVTOL aircraft, showing a bigger pattern of applying their core engineering and manufacturing skills to really tough, high-tech challenges beyond just cars.
Yeah, it's a fantastic reminder that solutions to complex problems, whether it's unlocking ocean secrets or inventing future transport, can often be found by looking across different industries, seeing the universal value of specialized expertise.
So here's a thought to leave you with, something to chew on after this deep dive. Given this example, car interior design helping deep-sea exploration what other, maybe seemingly unrelated industries might hold the keys to unlocking totally new frontiers. Exploration, science, technology, right here on Earth. Where else might hidden expertise from one field provide the breakthrough needed somewhere completely different?
It really does make you appreciate how interconnected knowledge and innovation can be, doesn't it?
Think about what stood out to you in this dive. What surprising connections does it spark in your own mind?